Right guys, welcome to another top 10, and I wanted to talk about games that are extremely unknown, JRPGs that a lot of people don't seem to know. They probably haven't even heard of them. I mean, some of them, I haven't even heard of them until months ago, weeks ago actually. So I thought of this video. First I was making a top 10 of the most unknown JRPGs ever for every single console, but then I realized that there were a lot of them. So I thought, maybe I could go by with a series of videos by consoles, you know what I mean? So I decided to start with the PS2 because not only is my favorite console, but because, man, it has a lot of JRPGs, and I mean a lot. And a lot of them are really unknown. So, let's have a look. Number 10 goes to Baroque. Baroque or Baroque or whatever is a game developed by Sting Entertainment for the Sega Saturn and the PS1 that only came out in Japan in 1998. Around 10 years later, in 2008, a remake version came out for the PS2 and the Nintendo Wii, all thanks to Atlus. It is an action RPG with rogue elements and dungeon crawler system following a mysterious man with amnesia. This game was even for Apple EOS, and it also spanned a manga series published by Square Enix. You might be thinking, how come a game like this is very unknown? Perhaps it is by the negative criticism it received when it first came out in 2008. I'm not sure if the original versions are better, but both remakes were panned by critics. Number 9, Soul Nomad. Soul Nomad and the World Eaters by Nippon Ichi, the guys who created this Gaia. This is a tactical JRPG that plays very similar to Yggdra Union, in which you create small armies to fight your enemies in a strange turn-based battle system. In my personal opinion, Yggdra Union got it right, and Soul Nomad failed. But it's not really my place to say anything more about it, since I ditched the game after the first battles because I just didn't like it. Maybe you will, who knows? I would say give it a chance if you haven't, since it has mixed to positive reviews, so perhaps it will turn out to be good enough for you. Number 8, MS Saga A New Dawn. This is actually a Gundam game. MS means mobile suit. Does it ring a bell? Anyway, this is a turn-based RPG set in a post-apocalyptic world, which makes things interesting, and it has a very good and solid story. Actually, this is a cult RPG with many fans. Sad to say that despite the positive feedback all the Gundam fans gave, the rest of the world technically ignored it, and the critics destroyed the game with negative comments. In my personal experience, it is a decent RPG with a cool story, but with a very repetitive gameplay and battle system that might not be worth your while. But that's just me. The story, the characters, and the traditional style are great. So, still recommend it anyway. On to number 7, we have Evergrace. So finally we arrived at the infamous H-Tech publisher with their own action RPG called Evergrace. One of the most mediocre games that I have ever played in my life. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just plain meh. And I say infamous because H-Tech is pretty well known for publishing these kinds of games. Games with very poor marketing, very forgettable, with mixed to negative reviews, and that only a handful of people actually enjoy. It's like they're the kings of mediocrity when it comes to JRPGs. And guess what? Yep, there are more from them to come on this list. Number 6, Forever Kingdom. This is the prequel to Evergrace, also known obviously as Evergrace 2. What I didn't mention in the previous title is that both games are developed by From Software. You know, the company famous for creating Dark Souls, Bloodborne and Armored Core? Also Lost Kingdoms, Enchanted Arms, some Kingsfield titles, well, Evergrace 2, or Forever Kingdom, is yet another action JRPG, but much better than its sequel, in my opinion at least. Now, what stands out the most in this game is that you now have party members that fight at your side. It is still a little mediocre, but like I said before, I think it's better than Evergrace, and it's totally worth a shot. Number 5 goes to Ephemeral Fantasia. Since the second word is in Spanish, it might be pronounced Fantasia. This game is considered to be one of the worst JRPGs for the PlayStation 2, and it was made by Konami. Well, I played a little bit of it and I didn't find it that bad. It was just mediocre, like pretty much almost every single title on this list. But the critics crushed this game with their reviews. It is a turn-based RPG with sexualized characters, a boring story, some cliches here and there. Look, it's not a bad game, but it's far from being a good JRPG. So now you're starting to see why most of these games are really unknown, huh? So there's not much to say about Ephemeral Fantasia, so you might as well ignore it. In a final note, I'd like to add that this game was going to be released originally for the Dreamcast, and for reasons unknown, it wasn't. Next is Dual Hearts. If you know this game, you're probably going to say, this isn't an RPG, it's a platforming adventure game. Well, it's an action RPG according to the developers, Matrix Software, with a platforming and adventure elements. People have compared this game to a lot to Zelda, maybe because there are a lot of similarities as you can see in the video right now, but I believe it's entirely different and more like the Alondra games, actually developed by the same team, Matrix Software. So whether this game is an RPG or not, it's still a good game and it's totally worth your time. It is one of the very few games on this list that I would gladly recommend. I mean, this and Forever Kingdom are good games, decent games. The rest of the list, I am not so sure. But anyways, on to number 3, which is Magic Pendule. H-Tech once again brings us one of its weird and unknown titles. This time one of the weirdest I've ever played, Magic Pendule: The Quest for Color. It's a Pokemon lookalike game in which you can draw and create your own creatures to start your weird adventure in a very childish world. Was this game supposed to be for kids? I mean, look, you can even play as Ronald McDonald. It was developed by Taito and a very unknown company called Garakura Studio. So Pendule, which is sort of like a pen brush, which lets you create creatures or doodles as the game portrays to help out in your quest, I believe. And you know what? Just play this game and see for yourself. It's just so damn weird and quirky that I will need an entire video just to explain what the hell it's about. And guess what? This game has a sequel, which is my number 2, called Graffiti Kingdom. Okay, not a direct sequel, more like a spiritual sequel, but this time it's an action RPG. Released in 2005, 3 years after Magic Pendule, Graffiti Kingdom is still a very unusual video game. The weirdness is still included as a major element in the game, but the fun of it goes into the fact that you can create your own creatures and doodles to fight your enemies. I don't know why I found this game more interesting and fun than the previous one, but that's just me. And did you know who made the music for this game? The famous Yasunori Mitsuda. Why would he lend his talent to a very unknown and weird game like this? Beats me. So finally, my number 1 is Tsukanai Atonement. If you've never heard of this game, it will probably surprise you since the cover makes it look more like a horror game of some sorts. But nope, believe it or not, this is a turn-based RPG. It was developed by Cattle and published by Atlus. You play as a mercenary who one day angers the gods and they separate his body from his soul, so to atone for angering them, he must possess the bodies of several different people and assist them on their problems. Well, I hope that hooked you up, because the story is actually the strong point of this game. Also, the music, again composed by Yasunori Mitsuda, is actually really good. So why is it number 1 on my list? Because it barely sold back when it came out in 2001. Maybe due to the cover, which is really cool, but it just doesn't look like an RPG at all. It also has mixed reviews, by the way, so maybe that's why it's so rare and unknown. To me, the most unknown of all. I recommend you to ignore all of that and play the game. The battle system may be a little dull, but if you can overcome that, you'll get a very pleasant surprise. And that concludes my top 10. Thank you guys for watching. As usual, don't forget to subscribe and share the video with your friends. See you next time.